Hello, hello, everybody. Sorry I can't be with you this Friday, and ahead of time, sorry. Well, I'll have to miss you again next Friday, but I will be putting another video out later in the week for next Friday. At any rate, for this Friday, what I would like to do is back up a little bit and hit a few things or talk about a few things that perhaps we've already been assigned, and you should have at least attempted. But I want to give you some tips on a few of those if you have not finished them or if you want to revisit them and perhaps improve on them. So I'm going to share my screen and then we'll look at a couple different things together, okay? All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to on our Canvas site, and I'm going to skip the first 3 weeks and go directly to what we were assigned in week 4, and we'll start from there. Okay, so in week 4, of course, we have at the top section the things that were due on that date. And one was to finalize your personal biography. And we have been talking about what that is and how it differs from your artist or designer biography. You should have both of those, and they are different. Again, you're just as a brief definition or difference between them, that personal bio, that's telling us the important things that are about you that help make you you. Those are things like where are you from? Perhaps if you have any pets, what are your hobbies? What are some influences on you? What do you like to do? Those types of things, a bio. The artist bio, however, focuses specifically on your art or design interests. Even though it's no doubt a big part of your life, that isn't what you talk about in your personal bio. It is what you talk about in your artist and designer bio. And again, you need to have both. Where you put them on your website can vary. I personally believe that your personal bio could either belong on the homepage or under a tab titled About Me. You could also potentially put it in a category underneath the writings tab, but I don't think that's the best spot for it. The writings tab or essays, I think, is a better spot for your academic writing kind of thing. So for this class, your little essays in answer to what is art, what is design, what is craft, and so forth, but also writings that you might have done from a different class. Let's say an art history class or a paper you did in a philosophy class or in your core class. Those could all be under the writings tab. Okay, if I go down to the artist statement, we talked a little bit about this at the end of class last time, but I want to revisit it for a minute. So the term an artist statement actually has many different definitions out there, and I want to talk about each of them briefly, but also how we're talking about them here for this class. So if you are a studio art major, and actually anyone who's probably ever visited an art gallery or museum, when you walk in and you see an artist's work, they probably have something called an artist statement, either up on the wall in some way, or it's there for you to read. And usually what the artist has said in that statement is something specifically about their inspiration for the work that you're looking at, what their philosophy is behind that work, but it's directly connected to the work you're seeing in the gallery. The way we are using it here is a much, much shorter kind of thing. In this case, it doesn't even have to be a full sentence. It could be 3 words or something like that, or a phrase. But it could be something that you quote yourself. It shouldn't be a quote from someone else, but it could be a statement that you say about your own work. For example, for myself, I say something that goes like this: the world doesn't need more stuff. The world needs more stuff, that beautiful stuff that works. And so that would be an example there, possibly. On the other hand, you might just say 3 words that characterize your approach to art or design making, or it could be in another form of a sentence, but it's not a long thing. That could also exist on the home page. If it does, you wouldn't also have your philosophy there. So it's one or the other. If you didn't put it on the home page, you could put it under the About Me category. So again, those kind of things are interchangeable. We're going to be talking about your resume here. I'll probably talk a little bit about it next time, but certainly when we get back. And that artist statement, that brief sentence, would in fact be on your resume. All right, the third thing that we see here is your assignment you had for your sketchbook. And that was to focus on one object only. And it needed to be something that was mechanical, not digital or electric. And the purpose here is that you can see how it works. That might be because of gears or springs, some kind of moving parts. The point of this particular thing is to show kind of a cause and effect. How can you illustrate that in a sketch kind of way, in a drawing way? How can you indicate that, well, this thing turns and it makes that thing move, or this thing flips up and it makes something else turn? It's that. So it's the interaction between pieces. So some of you have said to me, well, I don't have anything like that. Well, part of all of these assignments is for us to be more aware of our surroundings. So those things are, in fact, all around us. They don't have to be something that actually works. It could be broken. It could be a toy. But you can also go and find any of this stuff perhaps at a yard sale or at a thrift shop. Or you could go, in the case of this particular assignment, these mechanical things, you could maybe go over to the physical plant and ask for any broken machinery or something like that. It could be the inside of a clock. I think the inside of a pen that just has a spring in it probably isn't enough. So we probably need something that has 3 or 4 movable parts in it or moving parts in it to work for this particular thing. Do remember our scale or the size that we talked about for these. And in the beginning, we said maybe about the size of your hand. Well, if the object you're drawing is smaller than that, that doesn't mean you draw it smaller. Still draw it large enough about the size of your hand. So that's the focus of this particular sketchbook assignment. And again, those were due on September 22nd. So if I go down to the ones that were then due for the following week, we're talking about the beginning of a visual identity, a personal visual identity. We might also say this is your personal brand. And this is a brand or identity for you as an artist or a designer. It's not a brand or logo for you as something else. So you think of it as visually, how can you capture some quality about you as an artist or designer in a visual kind of way? So we say visual identity rather than just logo, because a logo is simply one part of a full identity system or a full brand. Those of you that are graphic designers will go into this a lot further later on, but in your other graphic design classes. But for right now, we're just focusing really on the simplest parts of a visual identity. And the main one that we'll focus on right now is a logo. Then we're going to talk about applying that logo to things that you would use as an artist and designer. So one of those things is what we're creating right now, and that is a website. So you'll have your logo on your website. You'll also have it on a business card and on your resume. Those are the 3 different applications of your logo that we'll have for this class. It doesn't mean you're limited to only those 3 things, but those are the ones we're concentrating on here. So what we first need to do after understanding what that is, so we'd go to these links, the visual identity link and the brand link, and read about that. That'll give you a better foundation to work from. You're creating a symbol. I'm going to go to this personal logo link as an example of one of them. So we'll go there and we'll have a whole bunch of other links on that from that page, ones that are specific to Disney, for example, some that are specific to a variety of styles or other applications. And again, any of these links I think would be helpful for you to at least take a look at. Logo design and logo development, those two, I would say those are a must. You absolutely should look at those because they will give you some good help in how to create something that is a meaningful symbol as opposed to a little drawing. There's a difference. There's also some things that we can do to make that symbol pop or have some visual presence, and that type of thing. And we'll get some of those tips from these two pages. This is not, I linked you to this one. It's also a page that I use in another class. So in the other class, this assignment is part of that class. It's not yours. So you don't have to worry about, oh, am I doing another assignment here? You're not. We're just referring to this page because it'll have some examples on it and it will tell us some things about logo development in general. So I'm going to, and so here's a little video link that I think can be helpful. I'm going to go down to these though. So these are all personal logos that most of them, in fact, were created in this class. And then as they went on and became sophomores, juniors, and seniors, they may have revisited it, improved upon it, or in some cases they had a better idea by the time they were seniors. But there are several on here that in fact were created in the freshman seminar class. So these are thumbnails of them. So if I just click on any one of these, then I will get a larger version of that image. So here is this particular one. If I hit the next button up here, I will get another version. So it'll be kind of a slideshow. So this one here, I think I'd like to talk a little bit about. So Adriana created this logo, and she did this as a freshman. And then she modified it as she became a senior to kind of tighten it up a little bit because of the letter forms that she used. Notice the A and the F are kind of combined together. And when two letter forms are combined together, we call that a ligature. But one of the things that's most important, whether we know that name or not, is the fact that it is a symbol. It's not just the letters of her name. So she has combined them together in a creative way. The slanting of it or the italicizing of it implies a little bit of forward thinking and progressiveness. The fact that it is sans serif or without serifs implies a little more contemporary modern feel to it. That it's basically all one line that comes around here with the, around the triangle A and back up. It's really a nice combination of letter forms and stylized letter forms to create a symbol. So let's look at one or two more here. This one is Alex Shigata's, and he did his based on a monogram kind of approach. And a monogram is a very specific version of a logo, not necessarily a personal, always personal, but that's the style that he was going for. And the fact that his name has a cultural significance to it. So this typeface that he picked and kind of wanted to resemble not only that historical reference, but also, I guess not historical, I should say traditional, cultural reference, but then also this idea of a monogram idea. So sometimes people say, well, isn't that hard to read? Yeah, he has weakened the readability by doing this. Same thing with the AF that we looked at earlier with Adriana's. The point is we're making a symbol. We're making a unique symbol. Its ultimate purpose is that uniqueness and that attention-grabbing quality. That's more important than its absolute readability. Can we read it? Sure, we can. Is it easy to read? Well, it's not as easy as it would be if we just wrote it out. So again, that's a difference. We're not just writing it out with a different typeface. We're then doing something else to it. Let's look at another. So here's one, Alejandra. So she combined the A and the S. It's a unique way of the S coming up and simulating the crossbar in the capital A. So that was a unique combination there. Here's another one with since she had double A's in her name, Andrea, and then her last name also Alvarez. So she actually has 3 A's in there, but we've got a double connection here, the double A's to her first name, but also her first and last name with those double A's. And in this case, she combined them to make this unique geometric shape. And then we could call this a lockup. I haven't talked about that yet, but in combination with her name and how it fits with it. So it's like a puzzle. It locks up next to it. Here's Anne's, and her, excuse me, her last name also kind of evokes a certain kind of cultural or traditional kind of thing, and as being French. And so this handwritten version of her first name and all lowercase letters for her last name, but also the typeface chosen here, and also the way that it's treated, it seems like it was printed in let's say an older technology. So her whole thing, her style of art was very much based on a personal handcrafted kind of touch. And sometimes we might say it's an old world approach to art and design. So those kind of qualities. Here is one that's an image. So it's not based on letter form, but it's a drawing. And I think that can work for both designers and for artists. But I think it seems to have an easier connection to studio art than it does to graphic design. The exception would be illustration. So if you feel that illustration is a strong suit of yours, you might be a studio artist focusing on illustration, but you might also be a graphic designer focusing on an illustration. So illustration as a specific technique can kind of fall halfway between both of those two bigger camps. I certainly think that if you're going to do some kind of illustration or, excuse me, hand drawing as a part of your logo, I think that you want to make sure that that's the kind of art that you do. You're focusing on illustration. Whether you're doing portraiture or not isn't that important, but it definitely says, oh, this person is an illustrator. This one from Dante, so this is maybe the most abstract one that we've seen so far. So this one's not based on letter form, and it is not illustrative. Very contemporary looking. It almost looks like an architecture kind of approach. He's a designer. He did this this is his business card that we see his logo. This is the way he treated his name. He used all lowercase letters, sans serif lettering, opening up the tracking or the space between all the letters of both what he does, his contact information, and so forth. And then this interesting abstract design. It's a unique symbol. It seems to imply forward thinking, some movement, some contemporary approaches to design, cleanliness of line, all of that stuff, very important for a designer. And I have to say, Dante did an excellent job of that right off the bat. Okay, let's see here. Here's Danielle. So Danielle, this is an example of a graphic designer who works in illustration. So she did a brush version of the D and T for her name, but it's done in a brush stroke. But then she unified it with this circle, and her colors gold and black. And then she has it here on this this background of the blue, gold, and beige. I think, as I recall, she later took that away and just stayed with the black and gold. But the brush stroke, the hand brush stroke, implies handcrafted design, as opposed to, in contrast to the one we just saw from Dante, which was more maybe digital, we could say. Both of them say quality, both express a different approach to design, their own approach to design. This is Harim's. She actually later changed this one. I kind of forgot that this one was in here. This is her first version of it, which is not bad, but her I'm hopeful her later one is also in here. But this is her first version. It's very expressive and that, but she does have a better one. I am going to leave these now and go back. Let's see, let's go back to here. Let's go back to here. And the reason, you can go through the rest of those and see more of them as other versions that have been done. I think to maybe just emphasize a little bit more of my point on this beginning approach to logos, they are not simply little drawings. They are also not simply using the initials of your name. You're creating a symbol. You're trying to make it unique and expressive of the kind of art and design that you want to do. It should be aspirational in that sense. Okay, so there's some other links on here. Color theory, that would be a way for you to maybe see what colors would help emphasize the qualities that you want in your brand. That's not necessarily your favorite colors. It's also, there's an awful lot of logos right off the bat that are black and red. Well, just think of that. If there's a lot of them out there already, black and red, how is that unique? So you want to try to find a unique symbol, and color is part of that. I would, and we know we have the primary colors, and we know we have secondary colors, but the way to really, really find unique color combinations, I think, are the tertiary colors, the colors that are in between there, those thousands of other color combinations to explore. And I think maybe I'm strongly suggesting you look in there rather than just saying my favorite colors are such and such and using them. They are not necessarily going to be the unique ones. Type is another direction here that is also going to be a big thing. We just saw several logos where the choice of the typeface made a huge difference in the effect of that resulting symbol. So as you're first trying to make a logo and picking a typeface either for your initials or for your name to accompany whatever symbol you're making, don't just try one or two. Try several different ones and look and try to see what the shape of the letters, the letter form, what that evokes. What does it make you feel? And is that feeling in line with, again, your aspirations as an artist or a designer? We can see that there's several other things after that. There's a tagline and slogan. There's applications on your business card, resume, and we said this website as well. I'd like you to focus on the logo itself, what we just got through talking about. And so in doing that, you need to create at least 10 different versions of a logo in a small size. So when I say thumbnail here, I think most of you are probably familiar with that term, but if not, it just means a rough sketch in a smaller size. And honestly, the size is not what matters so much here. It's the amount of time you spend on it. So as a thumbnail, you shouldn't spend any more than 5 minutes on any one idea. It's a part of the design process where you want to, the advantage is to create as many different ideas as you possibly can, not to make any one of them really, really good. So in the end, we do want that one to be really, really good, but we start with having a whole bunch of ideas, and that's what you should do. So as a minimum, I'm saying 10 here. Honestly, it should be more like 30, but I would be happy if you had 10 different ideas in a thumbnail version for that next class, for the next class. Okay, so it has a link to a peer review for this assignment as well. And because I'm going to be gone, I'm also we're not going to do that part on this assignment. Or it's not a part of that assignment. It was due today. Let's see here. So then the sketchbook, you're picking one object that you've already worked with. It must be something organic, though. So any object that you've drawn before that is organic, and you're just going to spend more time on it. I just got through saying as a thumbnail, as a version of sketching, that it shouldn't be more than 5 minutes. Now on your sketchbook, the drawing that you do for this one, I do want you to spend more time. I want you to make it the best drawing you possibly can. So you can pick any organic subject that you want, something that has grown or is growing. It could be animal or vegetable, either one, plant, any bones, any of those things can work for us here. But your goal is to make it look as real as you possibly can by closely observing it. You have to look at it really closely. So I think I told a couple of you this. I'm not sure I said it to everyone, but I had a good friend that I used to teach with, and he always said, regardless of whatever it is you're drawing, your subject is always light. So think about that for a minute. It's always your light. It's always light. Doesn't matter if you're drawing a hand. Doesn't matter if you're drawing a clock. Doesn't matter if you're drawing a pumpkin. If it's light, what you're focusing on are the shapes of light, where there are highlights, where there are shadows. So what you should first do before you draw anything is simply look at the object and try to see, well, where is the absolute brightest spot on that thing? Okay, I've got that in my head. Now, the opposite, where is the very darkest shadow area? Okay. Now, in between those two things that are singular, there's only one brightest spot, and there's only one darkest spot. And then there are a million shades of gray or darkness in between those two things. So the only thing that should remain totally white on your paper, on your drawing, is where that bright highlight is. And the only thing that is really black is where that darkest shadow is. And everything else has some version of shading in between it. So that's a clue here of how you want to create that difference in modeling on the object. You first have to look closely at it, know where those light areas are. Then by pressure with your pencil, that's how you get there. You can't expect this to happen the first or second time that you try it, but that's what we're focusing on. That's our goal. Then we've already spent a lot of time talking about the photographing of your artwork, how to adjust those levels in Photoshop, and then bringing them to your website. So all of those things we've covered, I think, pretty well, but this link right down here will take you to the page that'll give you the reminders of how to do it correctly. It is to your advantage to practice how to do it professionally. So that means using a tripod, or using the copy stand and seeing what the results of going through those steps, what difference it makes. If you don't practice those things, by the time you're trying to create your final portfolio and never having done it, it'll be a whole lot harder for you. So let's practice those things now as we move forward. All right. Excuse me. I'm going to go back to the assignments. So that was week 4. Let's go to week 5. It was this last week. And we have those things that I've just at the top that were due that week. And then October 2nd, October 2nd fall break. That's a little old there. But we have our other drawings, and and really it's the same. I would say the same thing. We're concentrating on the same things that I just got through talking about, with the exception of applying your logo to so you're narrowing your logos down to roughs of 3 that are a little bit bigger perhaps, and then applying that to a business card. So then what we should have is some versions of business cards that you've tried to make. So if you go to this link, it'll give you some tips on that particular thing, whether it's a vertical card or a horizontal card, or and I would stay with one of those options right now. I wouldn't go to a differently shaped card. I would stay with a regular size, the dimensions of a business card for this particular thing. As we move further along, we can vary from that, but let's start there. Okay, so we need to see some versions of your logo on a business card. Just to let you know here, at the end of the semester, I've been telling you that you will have everything uploaded to your website. There's actually 2 exceptions to that. Your resume will not be on your website. Neither will your business card. It won't be on your website either. Your logo will, but not the business card and not the resume. Those are the 2 things only that you will upload to me on this Canvas site. Okay, so we're going to go to the next week. So week 6. So week 6, so this is where we should be right now. So again, I've gone over the previous 2 weeks to get to this point. You should have all of those things completed that I just got through talking about, but I know some of you are a little behind. And if you want to revisit, that's how you can perhaps, hopefully those are tips to improve. So here we are on week 6. And we're talking about compositional frameworks, ways that you can create stronger compositions. And why these are so important is because most of the time what I see, and you're probably aware of it in your classes, that people are unsure how to create a balanced composition. And so you see over and over and over again, everything is centered. It's centered, aligned. It's centered in the page, up and down. And that's all we're seeing. And that's not good, because centered alignment is a form of balance, but it always implies formality. It never implies movement. It never implies progressiveness. It doesn't do that. It's not for those things. Symmetry or centered alignment is excellent if you wanted to create something that you wanted a real formal feel to it, or you wanted something that seemed real stable and non-moving. Then centered alignment is great. But if you, let's say, are trying to create any drawing or any design where you wanted the feeling to be progressive, you absolutely should not center it. Okay, we get that. So how do I do it becomes the question. And these 2 things here, the rule of thirds or the golden section, or sometimes just referred to as the golden mean, are 2 methods that artists have used for centuries, actually, to help them create asymmetric layouts when they want to create an overall composition that is not formal, but has some kind of other kind of movement to it. So these two links will take you to the details of that. And I need to talk with you about those in person when I come back. But you need to look at these links ahead of time so that you have some reference, because there's a lot of words in there, especially with the golden section, that might be new. So I want you to at least look through it and jot down questions about which ones are confusing and so forth. And you should also then be able to know how to make it yourself. And so I'd like you to try to do that. The rule of thirds, I think, will be fairly easy for you to do, but the golden section might be a little harder. I want you to try to make a golden section from a rectangle. Actually, it starts from a square. So if you would do that for me ahead of time, and then when we get together, we'll build on that, all right? So here again is all of those sections about photographing your work. And you might say, well, why is it this here? Now we've already talked about this, because I wanted you to start practicing with it from the start with your sketchbook drawings. And now, and also getting used to your website. Now you should be familiar with that. And now these are reminders and little videos of each of the steps that I talked about with you. And so if you are unfamiliar with any of those things, here are the individual links to them. And you should be using that for all of your artwork now, not just your sketchbook drawings. So for next week, which I still won't be there with you in person, you should have narrowed your logo down to one final logo, and we should actually see that logo on your website. We should also have a business card, and we should see your logo on the business card. There's other information on the business card. From this link, you'll find out what that is. We need to add internal and external links on the website. So remember, any of these things that you see on blue right here are links. Some of them take me to other pages on Canvas site. That would be an internal link. Some of these links take me elsewhere, like to my graphic design webpage or to somebody else's webpage out there on the internet. So those are what I mean by an external link. On your website, you need to have at least one of both of those, an internal link and an external link. So an example of an internal link might be, I'm reading your artist's biography, and you talk in there about something that is important to you. Let's say that what is important to you is light. And so you might highlight the word light, and then it would be linked to, or take me, the viewer, to a page of your drawings where I can see you practicing that or showing that in your drawings. Because you're talking about light. I wonder how she's doing that. Click on the link. I go, oh, I see how she's using that. Great. So I can see the connection between the visual and what you've written. That's only one example. You can use it in many different ways. I would also suggest that you do it more than once, but for the requirements of the website assignment, you do have to have at least one of those. Now, the external link, that one is going to be something where you take me, the viewer, to something else. I'm going to use the artist bio again as an example. Let's say that in your artist bio, you are talking about an influence of another artist. And that other artist is, you really admire their work, you like the way they do watercolor. And so you mentioned them in your artist bio. So now you highlight their name, and that becomes a link now that will take me to that other artist's website. So that's not on your website, it's someplace else, it's external, but it takes me there. So I'm reading in your bio, tells me about Leonardo da Vinci. And you're talking about, you like the way his sketchbook was organized. So, okay, I click on it and I go and on the internet, I can see examples of how Leonardo da Vinci kept a sketchbook. And so that visual and verbal connection between the two. So we need to start doing that now. And then your sketchbook drawing is about how to draw hands. So you're going to draw at least 6 hands from different positions. And I put a link in here about how to draw hands. So I'm going to go to that one. And when this one comes up, it has, it's kind of a tutorial on drawing hands. So the way that they do them, they're making this comparison between a human hand and a mechanical hinges. Where the wrist is, where the knuckles are, for example, that are little hinges. So if I think of it, how it actually operates, that will help me to understand maybe how to treat it when I draw it. That doesn't, and so then building it blocking it out, the major planes first, and then shading it into the roundness of an actual hand is one approach. Another approach is something like this, where there's first seeing it in terms of proportion. So this open hand here, either on the back side of the hand or the palm side of the hand, one of the things it's showing is that, the distance from the wrist to the tip of the middle finger, half of that distance will fall on the knuckle of the middle finger. So that's a really good tip. So sometimes, in fact, many times, we see drawings that, the whole drawing is pretty good, except the hands and maybe the feet are tiny. They're not the right proportion, even though maybe the hand itself is drawn okay or fine. It's just too small. So the relationship between not only the fingers to the whole hand, but the hand to the rest of the body is important. Right here, we're just simply talking about the proportions internally, the proportions of the knuckle to another knuckle, or the fingers to the whole hand, and so forth. So we can see that indicated by the dashed line at the top, dashed line at the wrist, halfway between it, lines up with the middle knuckle. We are also seeing that these knuckles fall on an arc. They aren't straight across. They're actually on an arc. So we see that in 3 of the 4 drawings here, where it's an arc that goes across. This one, it's suggesting that from the tip of the thumb, arcing across here all the way through. But at any rate, they're not straight across. And so if I see that, that can be helpful, I think, in terms of the shape. Another thing that we don't see right here, but I think is helpful, is to first draw out or lightly sketch out, especially if it's a hand in one of these positions, as if it had a mitten on it. So what would the shape look like if it had a mitten? And we kind of see that right here, this line coming up around across this dashed line part and down, and then the thumb. So by drawing that mitten hand first and then breaking it down into the individual fingers sometimes can be helpful. At any rate, you're drawing the hand from as many different positions as you can. It makes sense that we start out with something like the whole hand open from the palm or from the back side before doing some of these other hand positions. But I do want you to try some of these other ones. And the challenging ones, I think, are ones like this, and that's called foreshortening, where the hand is either your hand stretched out in front of you, like this one, or someone else's hand coming towards you, like this one, or this one that's like it's pointing towards you, as opposed to this one pointing away. So foreshortening is another trick that we need to employ to get things to look like they're in real space. But those are more difficult. For sure, do some that are like this, some that are like this, and try a foreshortening angle of one. You're going to probably need somebody else to be a hand model for you for at least one of those. Yeah, so try those are your sketchbook drawings then for next week. And I think I'm going to stop the share right there. So, all right. So those are some tips that you should be thinking about now. maybe the last thing that I want to suggest to you is this. You know that you should be receiving your midterm grades fairly soon. You might have received them by the time you watch this. I don't know. But the ones from this class will indicate primarily your progress on your website. If you have not yet submitted your link to me for your website, your grade probably reflects that. In other words, it's failing grade. If you have a website and I've gone to it and there's only one or two things on it, it's still probably not a very good midterm grade. Doesn't mean you can't do well in this class. It just means that you've kind of put yourself in a hole. You've kind of made it harder on yourself because now the second half of the semester, you just have to work twice as hard to get back to where you should be. If any of you have questions or concerns about that, as far as the grade goes, we can talk about that individually for sure. But I want to say ahead of time that no doubt, if it was a grade less than what you expected, it's probably because either you don't have much on your website at all. It's probably not because of the quality of anything yet. We'll be, I've started to shift into talking about quality of things a little bit, but we first need to make sure we just have everything there. Okay. All right. I will have another video for you next week, and I will see you in 2 weeks. So bye for now.